If history has something to say, it is that nature will always stay. What does not always follow behind a lone species like mankind? Our folly clear we've taken for granted, aeons now the seeds we've planted, believing that we are not to blame, but if so, who lit the flame? Spare few forget our sacred home, made of tangled vines and animal bone, but still among us there are those who refuse to see her throes.
My name is Monique Roy. I'm a third-year technical production student at QUT. I'm out here at SURF, which is Samford Ecological Research Facility, a QUT-owned facility that basically works alongside ecological students and researchers. And I'm out here working as a part of the Situated Creative Practice unit doing creativity in a time of climate change. So we're working alongside researchers at SURF to basically come together as creative practitioners and ecological researchers to bridge the gap between climate change and how to address it in a more empathetic and emotionally captivating way.
My name's Keith Armstrong, and I'm the leader of a project here at SURF called Creativity in a Time of Climate Change, working with 19 students from all different disciplines. And we're here really to ask what creative practice and creative students can do in this time of climate crisis. The students have worked together over a 13-week period, and they've come up with a project called Symbiocene. Symbiocene is essentially a future of some symbiosis between humans and nature, and they've made a series of online and offline projects to talk to that idea.
For my subject project specifically, I'm the project manager for Sample Squares, and what we're looking at is to help propagate the environment through visual art. So what we have is our 5 sample squares, which are actually called quadrats, which I learned today. And within them are 4 to 6 pieces of artwork, which eventually deteriorate as you go through them. So when you go at the start, everything's really beautiful, and then by the end, everything's deteriorated. And then you have to walk back. And what we're hoping that walk there does is to give people a sense of urgency.
In Tread Lightly, which is the sub-project that I'm part of, which I'm actually dancing in, it's all about kind of like a linking between everything, in that we are expressing the harmonious relationship with the land through our dance and through our movement and through our words. What's most important is a reframing of people's perceptions of nature. And we understand that currently a lot of people are really separate from that and really disjointed and don't see climate change as directly impacting them, which is entirely problematic. And we really want to, in Tread Lightly, this specific performance, while this philosophy is kind of threaded throughout each of the sub-projects, we are looking at how we can cultivate that kind of connection to land so that people don't feel separate from it, so that they are aware that it is their problem too. It is, entirely our responsibility, and we're not separate from nature.
There's another project called Ravaging Oblivion, and Ravaging Oblivion, essentially the form of that are 2 dancers inside a cocoon which they burst out of, and they perform essentially a sequence where one of the characters is travelling through life and the other one is the effects of what that character is doing on the planet as that character travels through life. So that's another way of looking at the innate relationship between people and place, or people and landscape, and essentially trying to say we are part of the land, we are part of the landscape.
I remember long ago when trees were just beginning to grow. I remember simple times when people sat around and sang rhymes. I remember simple things like people picking flowers in spring. And I'll remember watching you, really not knowing what to do. Let me make it clear, time is of the essence, it smells so sweet. I am your enemy, we will compete, see where fate takes us, unless you take the lead. I will simply follow, bring me to my knees, color me intrigued.
How do you feel about climate change? I feel like climate change is this big cloud that sits over everyone's heads, and because it's so intangible, no one really knows what to do about it or how to tackle it.
If I'm asked how do I feel about climate change, I think that everybody who thinks about it feels a kind of grief, because the forces that are slowly destroying the ecosystems around us are very strong. However, it is too much of a luxury to actually fall into despair about the problem. What we need to do is actually bite off that part of any solution that we have any agency with. So in the case of the arts, I believe we have a certain degree of agency in terms of how we can affect people's ways of thinking about things, because we can push emotional buttons. You know, we have the capacity to actually help people develop emotive intensity about ideas. And I think that humans make a lot of decisions based on emotion, just as much as they make it on fact. So our job, I think, is to bring fact, emotion, and the power of the arts together to try to shift culture.
Do I think there is hope for our future? I do think that there is hope for our future. I think with our younger generations, there's this fire that was seen in all of these previous protest movements and social justice, like monumental movements in history that is being done on, it feels like a daily basis with the climate change protests that are happening, and this awareness of the issues that aren't being taken seriously by government and other companies.
So what we're really trying to do is make that big intangible cloud tangible.
For me, hope is definitely necessary, and with that sense of compassion towards all life, I know that we can save it. Absolutely, there is always a way. There are so many intelligent, fantastic minds on this planet. We can definitely kind of create that change that's really required.
The most important thing is this, that it doesn't matter what your profession is, it doesn't matter what you're studying, it doesn't matter how old or young you are, there's something everybody can do to deal with this issue. Like it can't be the only thing that you do in your life, because that is emotionally very draining, but I do believe it's all of our responsibilities to act in the best way that we can. As an artist, you can often feel very agonised, oh, I'm just an artist, what can I do? But there's a very long history of environmental activism and environmental art practice that you can draw on, and you might look at that and say, well, hell, that didn't make any difference because we're still causing the same things as we did. But that doesn't mean that you can't try to invent something new that will have maybe have an emotive effect even on a few people. So that was really the whole idea of this project, creativity in a time of climate change. What does that mean? How do we make that happen? And how do we get our message out to the people out there, to the public?
All must not be lost to fear, for there is time if we persevere. Even if you do not agree, does it not hurt to see that we hurt ourselves, we hurt each other, we harm the bark, we harm the mother? The time approaches, we must act in change, progress, then nature, priorities to rearrange.